On today's episode of the Launchpad Podcast, we are talking about Christian Wood talking to the Rockets about an extension at the Astros game, Jabari Smith possibly not working out for the Houston Rockets, and back by popular demand, another trivia section. So we have a great show for you today on the Launchpad Podcast.
Houston, Roger, we copy and standing by for your TV.
They throw it up. Oh, there goes Jalen Green. Humans can't fly. Rebound picked up by Green, who's back in. Plays it ahead of board. Back to Green. Oh, it ain't time for Thanksgiving, but there's plenty of yams to go around for everyone.
Welcome into the episode of the Launchpad Podcast presented by Clutch City Control Room. As always, I'm your host, Don Knock. You can find me on Twitter under the same name. You can find the pod at Clutch City CR on Twitter. In the description there's the link tree, and that will get you the Apple, Spotify, and YouTube links. We made a call out after the last podcast for YouTube comments, and y'all did an incredible job. We got a ton of comments. I think I've almost finished replying to every single one of those. So thank you for the comments. Again, leave a comment on this episode if you have something you want to mention. I think this will be, well, Christian Wood, every time he comes up, it seems like the episode does numbers, and there's a lot of people that want to weigh in on this. So I'm expecting this podcast to, ring off a little bit. So, weigh in with your Christian Wood takes, and that's what we're going to be getting into first here. We're going to talk about Christian Wood and his time at the Astros game. We're talking a little bit about Jabari Smith, mentioning to the Orlando Magic press that he's going to work out for the Magic and for the Thunder. Didn't say anything about the Rockets. And then we are going to finish with another segment of trivia because y'all loved it so much last time. I had a lot of people mention that they enjoyed seeing me lose. So I'm willing to subject myself to the pain and suffering again.
These were all me. All those messages were me for my multiple brothers.
That's fine. If you want to keep doing that, feel free. As always, I'm joined over there by my co-host, Paulo Alves. Paulo, tell the people where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Paulo Alves NBA. That's PAULOALVES NBA. Everything I do from podcasts like this one to the last shows on Twitter Spaces will find itself linked on there.
And not bi-weekly. He had to skip a week on us, but he is back. We'll say tri-weekly. I don't know if that's a thing, but joining us today. Did we lose him? He was offended that we mentioned that he didn't show up.
Oh no!
Well, we'll see if we can get Ben back. I didn't.
We'll chop
this out.
Did you scare away our guest?
We'll chop that out.
I'm back. Sorry.
Okay. Did you have tech issues or what happened?
Yeah, I think so. It just said not connecting, but
okay, cool. We'll just chop this out. And back for his bi-weekly, or we'll say tri-weekly segment. We had to miss last week, but good friend of the show, Rockets Wire editor, host of the Logger Line podcast. I got my Logger.
There we go.
Logger shirt on to help him out with some promo there. Ben DuBose joining us again. Ben, how are you doing? Tell the people they can find your stuff. And are you excited for Rockets trivia?
Yeah, absolutely. Never done it before. Trying to keep expectations minimal, but I am excited. I love a good trivia night. Can't say I've done a Rockets one before, so this is new. And of course, for me, Ben DuBose on Twitter, the Rockets Wire on Twitter, and rocketswire.usatoday.com for all the daily content. All
right. So first segment, we're going to talk about Christian Wood. So Christian Wood was at the Astros game last night to the joy of, we'll say Vengeance Wood, friend of the show, Bias Houston, and also friend of the show, Andrew Sukup. He was out there throwing out a ceremonial first pitch. Unfortunately, it was not a strike for him. Also, unfortunately, they lost the Christian Wood night game. That is why many of you, I'm sure, have seen Christian Wood in a Golden State Warriors jersey on Bias Houston's page. That was a bet with myself. If I lost, I was going to have to put up a edit with my current avatar with Steph Curry in there for the Sugarland Space Cowboys. There we go, mascot. But, they asked Christian Wood, some of the Rockets beat reporters, always on the trail, hot on the trail. They showed up there to talk to Christian Wood and ask him a little bit about, what was going on in his offseason. if he was going to participate in the offseason workouts with the guys, because up to this point, he wasn't in a certain offseason video that the team put out, and he hadn't been, pictured, videoed, anything like that in any of the workout videos up to this point. But Christian Wood said he had been working out with Jalen Green a little bit in the offseason. He had been talking to some of the other guys in the offseason as well, and that now he was back in town. He was ready to, get the ball rolling on working out with the guys and potentially a contract extension. And the number was floated out there by Adam Spolane last night. It would be, I think it was 4 years, $77 million.
That's the max that they could offer. Yeah, that's what Eric Gordon got in 2019, although the final year obviously was not fully guaranteed. We're going through that now. But yeah, 4 years, $77 million is the max he can get this summer.
Yes. So in typical Rockets Twitter fashion, a lot of people weighed in very suddenly and urgently on, whether they thought that would be something that was positive for the Rockets, negative for the Rockets. We tweet out a poll. Would you want to give Christian Wood that extension? And it came back to, I think it was like 75-25 no. But Ben, you've been around, covering the Rockets for longer than us. How are you feeling on a potential Christian Wood extension? How are you feeling about the number that was floated out there? And how are you feeling about, if they would give Christian Wood an extension, how would he fit with bringing in, potentially Paolo Banchero or Chet Holmgren, as it seems like they're probably not going to drop to the Rockets at this point?
Yeah, so one thing that I took away from it is that it is a positive that Christian Wood at least has the awareness to realize that he's not a max player. Now, I never went too deep into his comments at the end of the 2020 to 2021 season. I believe it was a matchup after he played Karl Anthony Towns in Houston, and held up, and somebody asked him, do you think you can be a max player? And that's one of those situations where a quote can get pulled out of context, because what the hell is a player supposed to say? It sounds really ridiculous if they say, no, I can't be a max player. I can't do this. And of course, he's 2 years from a free agent anyway. So people made that quote out to be more than it was. In this case, for him to even be open to a contract extension at least shows a baseline sense of awareness that no, he is not going to be getting $30 million-ish, which I believe if he were to become an unrestricted free agent next summer, that would actually be his max. He's not that type of player. And let's be clear about that from the start. The 4 years, $77 million, that's the max the Rockets can offer him in an extension under the NBA's collective bargaining agreement. It is absolutely not the max. Some people are going to confuse those two things. No, that is not a max salary. So I will say it's at least a good starting point that Christian seems to have the awareness, if he's open to an extension this summer, that it feels like he understands what his limitations are, and that, he's not expecting or realistically hoping to get some huge payday a year from now. Now, with that said, I don't think I would even do the 4 for 77. I know Andrew said last night that could be a bargain, and I guess it could be, in the sense that if there was any team elsewhere that would potentially pay more now, then could it be a bargain? I guess. But there are so many questions with where Christian fits with the Rockets in regards to not just his playing style, but fitting in all these front court players. You've got Şengün and Garuba, who are primarily fives, in my opinion, already on the roster. You're bringing in a 4 in all likelihood, unless you throw a curveball and select Jaden Ivey. You're going to get Banchero, Jabari Smith, or Chet Holmgren. So you're looking at all these front court guys that need to play, and we've been talking about for a while Christian Wood perhaps being the odd man out. He does turn 27 years old this offseason, and all of that's true. But with that said, he was Houston's leading scorer and rebounder a season ago. He's 6'10", he's athletic, and he shot nearly 40% on threes at high volume. He is a talented player. So when we talk about his weaknesses, we often talk about his weaknesses in the context of what we feared would be his next contract, and also who he might be potentially taking minutes from. With that said, if his contract theoretically was low enough, I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, let's just go to an extreme example. But let's say Christian Wood was willing to sign for a 4-year extension for $20 million, i.e. $5 million a year. Now that's comically low, but I think he would be on board with that. It'd just be absolutely silly not to, because even if you don't like Christian Wood as a fit, the basketball player, okay, then if he's that just dramatically underpaid, then it's going to improve his status as a trade asset for you in the future. Now, if he signs an extension, there is a period of time that you can't trade him, but that's brief. At the end of the day, the Rockets aren't trying to win a title this coming season anyway. So if theoretically you could get like a sweetheart deal and trade him later, then at the end of the day, the Rockets shouldn't be afraid of that. But the reason I wouldn't go for like 4 years, $77 million. We've talked forever about the importance of 2023 cap space and flexibility, and we don't need to explain why. Again, people listening to this podcast are well aware of how the Rockets are set up financially in 2023. To me, while I'm not opposed to a Christian Wood extension in all circumstances, you need to feel pretty good that that deal is going to be movable if you need that space next summer. The same goes with any contract that you hand out this offseason. While I'm not saying that there's no circumstances I'd bring in a veteran or do an extension, you need to feel like that the deal you do is going to have positive trade value so that if you need more flexibility a year from now to go after some bigger name or potentially make an impact trade, then you can do that. And for me, Christian Wood, there's enough questions about his fit. We've seen not as many, but still happened on New Year's Day as far as not wanting to go back in the game, and then the suspension after that, to where if you were to give him a 4-year extension on top of the 1 year, you would have him under contract for 5 seasons moving forward. And he's going to turn 27 this offseason. That would be paying him through his age 31 season. That's a pretty long time. And I could see that, while not being a terrible contract, I could see that, especially if he has a couple more incidents next year, perhaps being tougher to offload than we think, especially if he's averaging nearly $20 million a year. And so I just don't think you can take that risk when you already have a crowded front court as it is. So for me, the good news again is that for Wood to even be talking about being open to an extension, he sees that he's probably not a $20+ million a year player at this point. That's just the math. There's no other way to give him an extension at this point. What I would try to do, I would be open to maybe like 2 years, $35 million, maybe a mutual option for like 3 years, 50, 55. I would not go for, I think, 5 years of control, putting him into his 30s. To me, that's a little too risky, especially when you consider that, as recently as early 2020, which was a little over 2 years ago, he wasn't even really a consistent rotation player, let alone a starter. So the body of work is still relatively small. I would not go that far out in the future, especially because if things go haywire for one reason or another, it can be sort of tough to offload a guy with that many years left on his contract. My sense of the market in terms of, could you trade Christian Wood later if the fit doesn't materialize? I think it's pretty clear that the Rockets tried to deal him at the trade deadline, or were at least open to dealing him at the trade deadline. And I do believe the reports, there was some interest, but it's also clear that the interest was not overwhelming. Otherwise, they would have, in my opinion, there was just way too much smoke, and of course, incentive to get more minutes for Şengün and Garuba. So my take on how things went down at the deadline is the Rockets canvassed the market, and there were some opportunities, but nothing overwhelming. And what that sort of tells me is that he's priced now accurate in terms of how the NBA sees him. Like the current deal he's on, which is 3 years, $41 million, about $14 million a season. I think that's right in about the sweet spot of his value, and that teams did have interest, but it wasn't so much of a value that teams, even with 2 years left on the deal or 2 postseason runs, were willing to push their chips to the middle of the table. So what that tells me is that I'm not willing to give him a significant pay increase, because I feel like if the market was sort of decent, but certainly not great at his current salary figure, then giving him a substantial raise to closer to, say, $20 million a year, especially if it's for like 4 years, that might be a little bit too much. So that's why I'd go like 2 for 35, 3 for 50, something in that range. Now, I know that's a little bit of a raise, but going from like $14 million a year to $17 million a year, that's just standard inflation in terms of when you consider the salary cap going up. It's basically the same percentage of the cap. So in my opinion, the rules that I would set out, I would say not much of a raise, if any, in terms of percentage of the cap. And I wouldn't go beyond, honestly, I wouldn't go beyond 3 years in any circumstance. I'd ideally not go beyond 2 as far as the extension, which is on top of the 1 year that he has left. Otherwise, I think it's too risky. If you theoretically could get him for that, then would I be open to it? Sure. But at the end of the day, I really just don't see it happening. I think a lot of this is just lip service. Quite frankly, it looks bad if Christian Wood says to the media, hey, they're not interested in an extension with me. We've said nothing. No, it makes sense for the player and his agent to to put out there there's a market, and it makes sense for the Rockets to not foreclose any possibilities. Rafael Stone says that all the time. Christian Wood is a talented basketball player, so it makes no sense to say, no, we're not open under any circumstances. We're done with this guy. No. I mean, you keep your doors open. But at the end of the day, with the questions about fit and the reality of Christian Wood at 27 years old, this is basically the peak of his value. I doubt he takes a deal short enough on an extension, i.e. just a couple of years. This isn't a situation, by the way, he did just get $41 million in 2020. So it's not like it's his first contract where he just wants some stability. No, this is his last time to get a big deal. And given the inherent, just lack of certainty in Houston with his role and the future, I would just be surprised if he was open to like a 2 for 35 or even 3 for 50. Now, maybe there's a way, like with the Gordon deal, we said this earlier, like Gordon's deal was sort of mischaracterized on the market as being a 4-year contract. And to this day, a lot of people on NBA Twitter don't seem to get it because that last year only guarantees if his team wins a championship, which is not happening in Houston, or makes an all-star team, which is not going to happen with Eric Gordon at 33. Come on. Basically, they gave Gordon that 4th-year option so that Gordon and his agent could say, we got a 4th year. We got the max. So maybe maybe there's some scenario where you could sort of massage how the contract looks to where it's really, a 2 or 3 year deal, but maybe give Wood and his agent the ability to say we got so-and-so, even if they really didn't. I mean, maybe something like that. But from a practical standpoint, I would not like to go beyond 2 years. I might go 3. And while, I won't say it's impossible, I would quite frankly be a little bit surprised if Christian would take it, just because I think the odds are he could probably get a 4-year deal next summer as an unrestricted free agent. So I think, and the other part of it, I know I've gone on a little bit talking about this because it's a little complicated. Christian said in his quote that they would talk about it later this summer. Quite frankly, that makes sense from the Rockets standpoint too, because the draft and the first wave of free agency, that's also going to be your best window to trade him. So it's also sort of makes sense from Rockets' perspective saying, hey, we'll come back to this because it may take care of itself and he may not even be here anymore after 2 or 3 more weeks and this, peak trade window. So that sort of tells me, not just from Christian's standpoint, but the Rockets' standpoint, neither side is really feeling that good about this. And while I would be theoretically open to like a 2 for 35, 3 for 50 type scenario, I just sort of doubt that's going to be enough.
Yeah, I think one situation to kind of compare it to in terms of, them having conversation talks is the Oladipo situation, right? Where the team offered him, I think it was 2 for 50, something along those lines.
Yeah, 2 for 45.
Yeah. And so, the team extended that offer. He did not accept. I'm sure now looking back, he probably wishes he had accepted that offer, given how things panned out for him. But, like you said, sometimes this is a formality. Sometimes this is, how these things need to be handled. Just for optics purposes, relationships with agent purposes and things like that. But, I want to just kind of break down one other quote that was in the Christian Wood interview. And, he said, I just want to win. Wood told reporters, I'm focused on trying to win games and trying to get to the playoffs. I haven't been to the playoffs yet in my career. That's what I'm focused on. And, if Christian Wood signs with the Rockets again this year, they're probably not going to make the playoffs. Next year, maybe they start to get closer to the play-in. And then maybe the year following that, that's when you're really, trying to get to a playoff position realistically. And so, like you say, Christian Wood, 3 to 5 years, that's probably going to be the rest of his prime for the most part, maybe, a year beyond that. And, from his standpoint, I can understand why he would want to go to a more competitive situation, right? He hasn't been in the playoffs. It's not like James Harden, where James Harden came into the NBA and he's been in the playoffs every single year. I'm sure that's something that he wants to participate in. And part of me wonders, right, that when Christian Wood came to the Rockets, he didn't come to the Rockets to be the guy. He came to the Rockets to play with James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And I think when he came here, he had that role clarity. Obviously, those guys both, swiftly exited from the franchise not long after that. But for all the complaining and all the people that have been on Twitter saying like, oh, Christian Wood's a selfish player. He just takes his own shots and, he's not working the flow of the offense and things like that. I think, Christian Wood at one point had that perception of his mind of himself of, I need to be the second option, the third option, whatever the case may be. And, fill in behind a guy who's like a primary guy. And the last 2 seasons, for various reasons, right, until they shut him down this season, he was the guy. He was, the focal point of the offense. And so I'm wondering if, from his standpoint, well, one, it would probably wait. You'd probably have to wait around here for Jalen to, take over that primary role. And then he kind of falls naturally into his secondary role. But I wonder if he would like to get to another team just because he would like to be in the playoffs and, experience what that's like.
Yeah, it's possible. And I'll jump in with a couple of things before I'm sure Paulo has thoughts about the whole Christian Wood scenario. As far as your Oladipo reference, I think that is a good parallel, not from the standpoint necessarily of a deal being offered, because I really don't think the Rockets ever. That's one of those things that people on Twitter lose the nuance. I really don't think the Rockets ever truly offered that to Victor Oladipo. I think that was something that both sides knew that it was something of a trial agreement, but Rafael Stone really values his relationships with players and especially agents around the league. And quite frankly, it was good for Victor Oladipo's bargaining power at that time to say that he had that type of offer. So I think it's one of those things where both sides went into it knowing it wasn't going to be accepted. But hey, it's good for Oladipo on the market to say he has that type of interest. So what's really the harm from a Rockets perspective when they're really not that interested in it anyway? It's just one of those little things that's not really any skin off the Rockets' back, so to speak, and it can potentially, buy you some goodwill with the player and especially his agent. So, and I could see that being a factor here too. As I mentioned earlier, it's one of those things where if a media member asks Christian Wood, has your team had anything to say to you about a potential extension now that he has 1 year left in his contract? Quite frankly, it sounds terrible if he's like, no, they have no interest in me. I mean, that's not very good. So I think it's one of those things, both sides, they like each other. And even if it's not going to be here, it's not like you want to just throw the guy under the bus. You want to set him up for success. And I do believe that he's a guy, I don't know if he wants to leave Houston. Every time he's interviewed, he talks about wanting to make it work here. But I do think he's someone with his deficiencies, not just on the court, but off as well. I think he'd be really good with a clear alpha dog that's more of a veteran, a LeBron James, a Kevin Durant, that type of player. I think he would fit a lot better in that than a system in Houston where, I know we have Jalen Green. That's a huge source of excitement for people in Houston, but at 20 years old, he's not going to be that type of alpha in the locker room. You don't have that type of leadership voice. And so I do think that you could play to Christian Wood's strengths a little bit better somewhere else. So that's sort of the context that I would add to it. I do think that there's just some sort of mutual, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours with some of these negotiations that happened with Oladipo and now potentially with Wood. It's just something that makes good sense to say. And in terms of the reality, again, I wouldn't rule it out, but I would just be very surprised because to me, the numbers that would potentially make sense for the Rockets to make sure that, hey, even if this fit doesn't go well, that I feel pretty confident I could trade him a year from now and he wouldn't be an albatross. He would still have at least neutral, if not clearly positive trade value. I just don't see a 27-year-old Christian Wood taking it. So it's one of those things that sounds good to theoretically for both sides to say the option is there. In reality, I just don't see it.
Yeah, to me, I guess I'm just so over Christian Wood at this point. It's just he wants to be a playoff player, but he can't play any defense, and he doesn't try to play any defense, and he plays the most important defensive position in the lineup. And what makes him good offensively is the fact that he is that mismatch at the 5. To me, it's just a fundamentally flawed player. And it's usually you can only win with fundamentally flawed players if they're superstars and they're so elite at these other things that those flaws don't matter as much. And even then, your Ben Simmonses of the world have never actually, they were close when they were beaten by Kawhi Leonard's buzzer beater, but usually it doesn't go well.
And the final, by the way, to jump in really quick, the final nail in the coffin potentially for the Wood era in Houston was the Rockets getting lucky and getting that number 3 pick. Because now you're looking at probably Paolo Banchero. I'm still not willing to write off Jabari Smith or Chet Holmgren. I know we'll get to that in a few minutes in the second segment. But the bottom line is
Great
you're most likely,
right there.
Yeah, you're most likely going to be bringing in a 4. And so even if you're one of those people that believes in the limited glimpses here and there of positivity with the Christian Wood and Alperen Şengün lineups, well, now you're most likely, I'd say 90%. I guess there's the very, small 10% chance that, Jaden Ivey is the pick. But if not for that, and, Christian mentioned Banchero, which is nice. Banchero seems to have a lot of supporters around the NBA, but it's sort of funny to hear to hear him mention Banchero, because it's sort of like, hey, if they bring in Banchero and they already have, Shingun and Garuba, who they clearly believe in and need to play more, there's going to be a crunch. And at some point, you're just going to run out of available minutes. And Banchero, if he is the pick at 3, he immediately jumps ahead of Christian Wood in the pecking order. Quite frankly, Banchero would be the second most important asset in the entire organization, trailing only
We would
Jalen
hope
Green.
so. We would
Yeah.
hope so. We thought the same about Jalen last year, and then it took forever.
Well,
so.
no, but I mean, just from a Rockets asset standpoint,
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things to where my guess is Christian. He's not going to say it publicly, but privately, he may see the writing on the wall as well. If that's the scenario, it's just it doesn't do anyone any good to spell it out at this point, especially because the pick hasn't been made yet.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is, to me, you said you're in the $17 million range. I think if his value right now, if we're listening to, I'll struggle to pronounce his last name, but it's Danny Leroux. Is that
Danny
Leroux?
Yeah.
Leroux, sorry. So if we're listening to him and he is not worth a first round pick right now for most teams, the way I look at it is, well, at that point you're not even locking in an asset long term, or you're not even extending him because you don't want to lose him for nothing. Because the difference between a couple of seconds or 3 seconds or whatever it is, and actually just letting him go for free is not worth the hassle of the team building problems.
For the record, just a quick jump in, I don't agree with that. And, I have asked around a little bit about that. I don't think he, let's not go crazy. I'm not saying the difference is huge, but I feel pretty confident that you could get, a mid to late first round pick for Christian Wood. If that's a small distinction, definitely not a peak asset. I just wouldn't say that. I think saying not a first rounder is a little extreme.
Yeah. So even a mid
to late first, I know what you're saying.
Even a mid to late first, it's like, I'm willing to extend them. And this is coming from one of the biggest Christian Wood detractors, if you're taking basically the same money that you are now, because at that point you are going to be a bargain contract, and you will actually increase value because people will look at it and will say, well, this guy basically is not increasing in salary, and I doubt his production will decrease anytime soon. So he's actually going to improve as an asset as time goes on. That might allow you to flip him later. But to me, man, it's just, as a rebuilding team, sometimes you just gotta prioritize what needs to be prioritized. Christian Wood is a high maintenance player. I highly doubt. I mean, I know he took a smaller role when he was here with Harden and for that little stint. But the way I look at it is, once you get the taste of being such a big part of your team, and there's no abrupt change, a la joining a team with a clear superstar.
Yeah, you didn't make a clear superstar trade.
Exactly, it's going to be hard.
Well, I mean, we're acquiring future Hall of Famer Paulo Banchero in the draft, so I mean, you have to take that into consideration for sure.
Yeah, you're going to struggle to organically push guys.
Free range, sir.
To naturally push guys ahead of him in the pecking order on the team itself. Because this is not just 2K. You don't set scoring options. It's just it naturally happens.
This guy off the podcast.
Keep
it together. All right, go ahead, Ben.
No, I was gonna say, speaking of organic, there is a very real connection between Steven Silas and Christian Wood. Christian Wood has talked about Steven a ton, and so that's one of those things that makes me not totally rule it out. But again, I'd be surprised. I mean, I think a lot of what Paulo is saying to be true. It's not like he's a peak asset, not like you just want to keep no matter what, even if you don't see the fit just because of the asset. I mean, it helps a little bit, but it's not a huge needle mover. And again, I think it's something where Christian could probably find a better deal for himself a year from now anyway, if he's unrestricted. So
yeah, and it's you just made another great point, is he is in a contract year, and in a contract year especially, he's not going to want to take a step back,
sure,
other than from 3 to in his role.
Wow.
In his role, because he wants to get paid. And so the way I look at it, it's just, okay, you don't gotta squeeze the most value possible out of every asset. This is you've reached the point where you've got a lot of guys that eat well in their hands, and these guys have a lot higher upside. So let's just act like a rebuilding team. Let's not overcomplicate things. Let's just trade the guy and just give the reins to who we actually want to give the reins to. I think it was healthy for Jalen Green. I didn't think at the time, but I now think it was healthy for Jalen Green to take a little bit of a step back and learn to play off the ball. But I think now that Jalen is here and we know that he can do that, and we have KPJ, I think you can use those guys to be what Christian Wood was last season to Jalen. Those guys can be to Banchero and force him to play and to also learn to play the game without the ball. In a sense, I don't think you need Christian Wood in that regard. So it's the arguments over and over and over again. I ultimately think that, just like Ben said, it doesn't look good if you say that you didn't argue at all, and it's better for both for the team that wants to trade you and for the player who will probably seek a payday next year.
Yeah,
that
good point. It doesn't help the team. Yeah, it doesn't help the team's leverage trying to trade him if we don't even like him enough to even start a potential extension talks.
Exactly.
Good point.
So it's kind of, I think it might be kind of like the Oladipo situation. That's what I hope it is. But if it happens, it happens. Not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that he can be traded in the future. It's just
Christian Wood for a nice shiny pick swap coming soon. That's what you're telling me.
We've had, I think, I mean, unless he plays as bad as Oladipo, I'm pretty sure he'll be able to bring back more. But it's just, we've had this discussion for so long, and Rockets Twitter has, and not that it matters how the fan base feels to an extent that big, but everyone's kind of over it, and it's like that's why the reaction instantly was like, oh no, is this really happening? But I think it's like when you fear something it's gonna happen, when you get a small hint that it might happen, then you're like, the pessimist in you is immediately believing it.
Yeah.
By the way, one final thing. I know we need to wrap up this segment because we're going long, but Paulo mentioned the pick swap. That's something that when I see like NBA fans on Twitter debate trades, I think those are incredibly undervalued. If you're not going to be able to get a high pick for a player, honestly, you're probably better off with a swap, especially if it's somewhat unprotected, than you are a probable mid to late first. Because as we talked about ad nauseum with all these future Brooklyn picks, what you want is bites at the apple. You want as many unprotected or close to unprotected chances in which, one of these years, all it takes is a wave of injuries like the Warriors in 2020, and even a really good team can give you that type of situation. So yeah, take that swap when you can. And when you take that...
Did we lose him? All right, I think we lost him. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to make sure Ben comes back, and we are going to talk a little bit about Jabari Smith and some of the comments today about who he is going to have draft workouts with. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And we are back, and Ben is back as well from his technical difficulties. Welcome back. So we just talked a little about Christian Wood. I'm sure everyone was very excited to hear about his contract extension, things of that nature. Today, we got some more news. Even though we are in the dead days of the season, we have thankfully got some news the last few days that helps us generate some more content for you guys. But we heard from Tim Reynolds that Jabari Smith worked out for Orlando today, June 9th. He will also work out for Oklahoma City, and he has no other workouts planned. So a lot of friends of the show, I'll just leave it at that, we're big Jabari jungle people. We know Jackson made it out of the jungle. He was able to shave finally. He made it out of the jungle. He was able to shave finally, and now he's getting ready to board the boat with us. But
Christian Wood is also on the boat, by the way.
Yeah, Christian Wood, notable Banchero boat member. So that's definitely a check in the right box there for Christian Wood. But we saw this last year with Evan Mobley, not working out for the Rockets for whatever the case may be, reasons. His agency may have had something to do with that, or him. People would bring up KPJ going to USC and having issues with Evan Mobley's dad, and I thought those were a little bit, conspiratorial for my taking. I thought that Mobley had a right to not work out for whoever he didn't want to work out for. But Jabari Smith, this draft is a little bit different than last year. Last year it was really Cade was one, Mobley and Jalen Green were kind of vying for that second position. This year, coming into the year, you had consensus Chet. It's kind of shuffled now. It seems like Jabari is the consensus, or at least who the Magic are likely to take at this point based on reporting. But really those top three guys could all shuffle. If the Magic end up taking Paolo Banchero first, people may be surprised to hear that, but I don't think anyone would be just totally blown away by any of those top 3 really shuffling around. So Jabari not working out for the Rockets, I think to me, that tells me that one of those 2 teams probably did give him a promise and said, hey, you're not going to drop past us at 1, us at 2, whatever the case may be. But, does this concern you guys? Does this excite you guys? We're probably going to get Chet or Paolo. What's the kind of general vibe on Jabari not working out for the Rockets here?
So I don't read into it quite as much as you do, just because, it can be the promise thing, but we've also seen this get used more and more in recent years as a marketing tool. And a player, and especially his agent, basically puts an arbitrary cutoff point to sort of build buzz. And the fact is, they know that these GMs, for the most part, are, especially at the very top, are building their decisions based on tape. It's a little riskier later in the draft because there's so many options that I think, standing out in workouts and especially the interviews and getting them to trust you can be a way to stand out from so many others. But when we're talking about the true top of the food chain, 3 or 4 guys that have been dissected, there's a very finite number, and their tape is being looked at nonstop and has been for months in the case of Jabari, Chet, Paolo, and I guess Jaden Ivey as well. I asked Rafael Stone on draft night how much of it, or draft lottery night, excuse me, how much of it is going to be based on tape and how much of it is any private workouts and interviews you do. And he said, it's 99% tape. And I believe that. So agents see that too. And so with that in mind, especially at the top of the draft, they know that there's not much downside to their player not working out. You used Evan Mobley as a good example of that a year ago, in which even though he did very minimal work with Cleveland, Houston, and the other teams at the top, his tape still spoke for itself, and his measurables and whatnot. And Cleveland took him at 3, and he had a very good rookie season, obviously. So I wouldn't go as far as you would, because it's also, while it's certainly possible that he has a promise and is feeling good about it, I've also seen more and more in recent years that agents are sort of, especially the top of the drafts, hip to the game now, if you will. And so with that, sort of just making themselves more exclusive to sort of build the buzz factor. Because, sometimes, if fans and especially media start saying, this guy is clearly, going to be number 1 or number 2, then it could give him a boost in public opinion, because people are going to focus on his strengths. Obviously, it's a time of year that everyone wants to be optimistic. So I wouldn't read too much into it for that reason. But it's certainly possible. I would say that it's certainly possible. And I don't see anything bad about Jabari, because it just makes sense to try and build that buzz no matter how you've got to do it. That if you fall to number 3, Houston's probably going to take you anyway, because, you're the 3rd of those 3 elite big prospects. But for me personally, if it is real and there is, if not a promise, strong interest indicated from both Orlando and OKC, I'm fine with it, because as I've said throughout, Chet's been the number 1 guy on my board. I'll come around on Paolo, especially with the specific needs of this team. And while I'm not down on Jabari, I've had sort of a consistent concern throughout about his shot creation or lack thereof, and whether he has the type of upside that the others do. So at the end of the day, I have no real qualms about it either way. If the Rockets are getting Chet or Paolo, I'm completely happy. But I also wouldn't go quite as far as to say that it has to be a promise. It also could be a little bit of gamesmanship too by Jabari, and especially his agent.
Yeah, the way I see it is, well, if it is a promise, the promise is from OKC. Because, well, why would
he was from Orlando? Why would you? Yeah.
Why would you work out with anybody else other than Orlando if you've got a promise at number 1? And then the other thing is, why would
maybe
you
he's fond of OKC? Maybe he wants to go over there and have a nice tour around their fields and whatever else it is they do out there. I'm not really sure. I had to get that off. I'm sorry for any OKC fans might be watching.
Why would you work out with the Rockets? Like, that if you get number 3, the likelihood that they don't take you is really low, at least in my opinion. Yep. So, like, why would you work out for? You've got nothing to prove. They're gonna take you anyways.
We already know that Jabari has a promise from Clutch fans that he will be drafted. So, he's already locked, set in stone.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I have Jabari in a second tier below Paulo and Chet. So to me, it's been great news that he's going to Orlando, or if that's true. And if he doesn't want to come to Houston, he's going top 2. That means that we're guaranteed to go with one of the other 2 as well.
Yeah.
Whether that's him like going into whatever position. So to me, it's it's a positive thing. I don't spin it as our prospects not wanting to work out with Houston or something like that. It's just the situation that Houston's been on is when they have it's 2 very unique situations when they could make a decision that would probably encourage Mobley to work out with them. Mobley had a special agent that didn't let him work out with anybody besides Detroit. And then this year, they're not really in a position to make a decision. They're the last pick of a certain tier, so there's not really any motivation for him to work out here. What I think will be interesting is, will the other 2 guys work out here? Because by the same logic, both Paulo and Chet, why would they work out here if they think they were going to take them anyways? So I think,
Although maybe that's part of why Houston's leaked some of the Ivy interest, to make it clear that, hey, we're not 100% sure. There is this chance that we really like Jaden Ivey as well.
Yeah, and I guess there's also the possibility that Ivy goes to OKC, and then
Sure.
at that point, them working out would make it more likely that Houston would pick them and none of them fall to 4. Because I know Jabari said that he wants to win, and I know
you don't think he could win in Sacramento?
He's close. They are closer to winning than we are, but I don't think that's sustainable.
Not by a ton.
Yes, and they're like 10 years into their rebuild. So
20 years into their rebuild.
Yeah, and the difference is that Houston, in terms of rebuilds, has a turbo-nuclear button, to use a Stanford KP Karthik Prasad expression, that Sacramento doesn't, and that when Houston has financial flexibility, as soon as 2023, Houston's going to be a desirable destination for free agents. And so when the time is right, I feel pretty confident that Houston can get guys there. Less certain about Sacramento or Oklahoma City, for that matter, for a lot of reasons, which of course played into the past why I've wondered about Paolo Banchero and Oklahoma City. There may or may not be a picture on Twitter of him working out or in OKC, at least for a visit today. I believe Don just tweeted that out as we're recording. But the one thing that I'll throw in about all of this, just a word of caution about Jabari, about Paolo, any of these rumors. Above all else, what I would tell people listening is not to read too much into the mentality of the individual prospect. In this case, Jabari Smith, Paulo Banchero, Chet Holmgren. All of this is basically them being told by their agents what is smart for them. None of these prospects is so clearly number one, like say, this is a cross-sport analogy, but Don, you may recall, I believe it was 2004, but Eli Manning was the clear number one the year that San Diego had the top pick, and he did not want to play there, and he was able to force his way to the New York Giants. None of them is in that standpoint where they're so clearly above everyone else that they can just pick their destination, throw up a middle finger to, 1 or 2 teams and say, hey, I like these guys. I don't like somebody else. The margins are close enough to where it makes sense for you to at least, have dialogue with all of these teams. And in terms of who you work out with, who you don't, none of these players, these 19-year-olds, are doing 4-dimensional chess, trying to, how do I make certain fans or certain teams like me so that I can go there and, perhaps make another fan base or organization not like me as much, so maybe I'll fall. I think some people on Twitter try and read into it like that because everybody wants to feel like they got the guy that wanted to be there. That was a big part of the draw with Jalen Green last year, and it can happen that way. But some of this is people sort of ascribing a motivation to what just comes down to the agent saying, this is what I think is smart for you and your market. Like we were saying earlier, it's not, a hit at the Rockets or a sign that Jabari Smith doesn't want to be a Houston Rocket that he didn't work out here. It just quite frankly makes a lot of sense if the Rockets are likely to pick him anyway and he feels pretty good about being a top 2, or if he wants to build, if his agent says this is the best way to build buzz for him being a top 2, then that could be it as well. But I would just say that at this point, no one should try to read the tea leaves and say, well, Jabari or Paulo or Chet, they want to go here or they don't want to go here. No, these guys are just doing what their agents tell them is the smart thing to do. So don't try to read too much into it. Just take it for what it is as part of a strategy from, their agency and their reps.
So let's just make something really clear. This is a Banchero-friendly podcast. So what we are going to do is, after having all the rational discussion, we're going to close out with, well, it's very clear that Jabari doesn't want to come to Houston, and that Paulo does want to come to Houston.
There you go.
Do I need to throw up the vote?
And then Chet's just like, he hasn't decided yet, and so he is yet to choose, but eventually he will. Nah, I'm just joking. I think it's now that I think about it, when you go back to the combine, I think only Paulo met with the Rockets. Like, that's the only one we heard about, and so maybe the writing was on the wall that Jabari wasn't gonna work out here, or maybe, and if Chet doesn't, then I'm like, was the writing on the wall as well?
And by the way, I do think we'll have a little more clarity, both draft as well as other rumors next week. I saw someone today on Twitter talking about how quiet it's been. One thing to keep in mind, and of course, Rockets fans really have not had a ton of draft capital over the last half decade in the NBA to sort of go back to on this period. But really, the NBA tries to keep the focus on the court during the playoffs, especially the finals. So I think a lot of things, the rumor mill with the draft and beyond, will crank up once the finals ends, because a lot of teams and especially agents are basically holding their fire as a favor to the league and their buddies, saying, hey, we're going to keep the focus on the court. And so some of this stuff is going to get going a little bit more, the rumor mill, as soon as the finals ends. I think that's how it's going to work. So for those wanting more rumors, stay tuned.
Well, we know that now the finals is actually about podcasts and Twitter spaces after Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala fired him up last night along with the rest of us.
This is even more now. This is even more reason for us to root for the Celtics, because, well, they're the closest to winning, and so if they win,
there you go.
It's gonna come. The finals gonna end sooner, so we're gonna get our rumor sooner as well. So
there you go.
Totally I don't need any more reasons to root against the Warriors, my friend. It was set in stone. So, all right. Any closing thoughts? Is everyone comfortable here?
Give me
trivia. All right. So I do want to say, Ben, I want to get this out before we move on. Ben mentioned the Zapruder film footage of Banchero possibly in Oklahoma City. I did tweet that out. So if y'all want to go check that out, have a look at what might be Paulo Banchero in Oklahoma City. We have a picture of him walking into some sort of establishment from an individual sitting in their vehicle. So that is on my Twitter page. If you want to look at that, go check that out there. We are now going to go to break, and when we come back, we are going to jump right into Rockets trivia. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And continuing on into our final segment here with Ben DuBose of USA Today's Rockets Wire and the Logger Line podcast. Before we jump into our super exciting Rockets trivia for the second pod in a row, Ben has one last thing he wants to say about the finals game last night. So Ben, go ahead and get your point off here, and then we'll go right into the trivia.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in, but I knew we needed to hit the break. Oh my God, nothing is making me roll my eyes more, yet simultaneously laugh a little bit, than the morally righteous indignation of the Warriors fans and even some of the Warriors themselves. We heard, I believe it was Klay Thompson afterwards saying, stay classy, Boston, all that stuff. Are you kidding me? As I posted today, when James Harden was lying on the ground, motionless at Oracle Arena in, I can't remember if it was April or May of 2019, but during that playoff series, when Draymond Green poked him in the eye so severely that, his eye was literally solid red for the rest of that series, they booed him. I mean, come on. And then the sports media people trying to make this a storyline. Are you kidding me? As a fan of the 2017 World Series champion Houston Astros, my God, Jose Altuve hears profanities. By the way, again, did not even use the system that people pretend to be mad about. And I do think it's pretending for reasons that I've said a ton on Twitter. It's people that are just upset that they lost. But, they not only do not push back on, many of the media types actually magnify the bleep Altuve chants because it's good for, it makes them go viral. It makes them popular on social media. So for all the hot take people that are trying to, somehow use this as, being bad on Boston fans or, oh, we should have sympathy for Golden State. Are you kidding me? I mean, maybe there's a couple that are pure, but between the fact that on the Warriors side, what they have done in the past, their fans, I've seen it firsthand with the Rockets having those 4 playoff series there. And then especially on the media side, with the way that I've seen them cover a lot of the Astros aftermath, which is way over the top. Yeah, don't try and play this, think of the children card, which is what we're seeing with, profanities. By the way, Draymond, with his kid right next to him, they asked him how he played. I played like shit, which he did. But guess what? He didn't seem to really care about saying a profanity when his kid was right there next to him. So please stop this think of the children storyline. From a Warriors standpoint, from a media standpoint, it's terrible. Unless you're going to do that all the time, don't talk to me about it now. And spoiler alert, most of these people do not do it all the time.
I want to shout out at Rascal F Kennedy on Twitter. I follow, and we follow each other for a while here, but he pointed out that, there was someone saying, Warriors fans would never, or whatever. I want to say it was Draymond's wife or something. And he pulled up this clip of Warriors fans literally throwing objects at Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
Rocket. Well, I don't know if you want to go Rockets legend Charles Barkley, but
no, I will.
Okay, we'll go Rockets legend Charles Barkley. So again, throwing things at Rockets legend Charles Barkley, right? And it's like you're gonna have people in every fan base that do stuff that doesn't represent the fan base well, right? I think that's just kind of baked into sports fandom. But yeah, again, the Warriors fan base, the way the Warriors rose so quickly, there was a lot of I think there's a lot of people that kind of fed into that for, career moves, clicks, whatever the case may be. Because there was a lot of, podcasters that I listen to as well that, they just talk about the Warriors in this flowery language all the time and stuff like that. And then they kind of gloss over some of the shady underhanded stuff that went into a lot of their run. I mean, you don't have to get to the moving screens or, the game against Boston a few years ago where Draymond Green tackled 2 people, the eye poking. I mean, the Warriors have been a great team, don't get me wrong, but to act like they've just been this completely wholesome team that doesn't deserve stuff that's coming to them, I just couldn't get on board with that. And I dozed off a little bit after the fourth quarter last night. I missed some of the Warriors slander fest, but I woke up and I was immediately just like, how did it get to this point so fast? How did they switch it? But
bottom line, the Warriors don't deserve special treatment. Use the same standard for the Warriors that you do for other teams. If you want if you want people to dial it back in general, okay, but let's not make the Warriors out to be huge victims here. This is much broader than them, and no, nobody is picking on Golden State. Come on.
No, they should be picking on Golden State. Jesus Christ! This is they should get the reverse treatment. If you look at what Draymond Green stands for as a basketball player, he stands for masking this one of the dirtiest players of all time behind hustle and his inability to actually play the goddamn game. If it feeds into it as well, this dude has a good defensive IQ, and that is it. He is not good at anything else. He is a good passer. Okay, anybody can be a good passer if you're bad at shooting, finishing, driving, literally every single other aspect of the game. And then I'm good, but I'm going to cut the rant short because I want good vibes for the trivia.
Yeah,
but please.
Time for trivia, but yeah,
you've got Draymond Green on your team. Do not victimize yourself. You are the aggressor 99% of the time. So
we won't even get into the Draymond and the ref situation either. But all right, we've gone on long enough here. Paulo, let's get to the trivia. So last time we did 20 questions, it was 1st to 11, and it's 1 point for the question, 2 points for a steal. Is that correct?
So the rules are, so I'll explain it to Ben as well. So I'll ask the question, and the first person to answer it gets a point if you get it correct. If you get it incorrect, to counteract the fact that you don't want to just spew an answer out really quickly, the other person has a chance to steal. And if that other person doesn't steal, then I'll give a hint and we'll go back to whoever answers first. Okay. How much do we want to play to, Don?
I'd say let's go to 10 because we've already gone on a little long. So
okay,
we went to 11 last time, so that's perfect.
Okay.
And you've got to win by 2. Which, well, judging by Don's ability isn't really going to be a problem because, well, he lost by 6 in a 2-11 game, but whatever. So yeah, that's basically it. Let's start it. Are you all ready?
Let's do it.
All right. The first question is, let me pull one that's a little bit more friendly. Which Rocket holds the NBA record for most 3-pointers in a half?
Is this an old question? Because I'm guessing I thought it was Clay, but Chandler Parsons.
Sure, just filter it to Rockets players
All time.
Chandler Parsons.
all time.
Okay.
Chandler
Is your answer-
Parsons.
Okay, Chandler
Yeah.
Parsons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, Don gets a
Okay.
point.
All right, I'm off to a hot start. Last time I
There we
started
go.
out very poorly.
You were never in the lead. That was the
Yeah, I don't
seventh
think I
spot.
was. Yeah.
Okay. Let me. So these are so easy.
My type of trivia question.
Okay, so I guess I'll ask this one. Who did the Houston Rockets beat in 94-95 to win the championship?
Is this for me?
No,
this
you
is
just
for
say whoever. Sorry, whoever answers first gets it.
Orlando.
Okay, that one was easy, but I'll confirm it in the thing just so I get the green banner in my screen. That's correct. That's a point for Ben. This has been really peaceful. You guys gotta be feistier.
All right.
The tougher questions.
A second. Okay, who was the team's first draft pick in 1967?
Elvin Hayes.
No, Don.
That's a
Steal?
good-
It was not. So you got a chance to steal that.
Was Calvin Murphy drafted that long ago?
Is that your answer?
If it's not him, I have no idea. So I'm gonna go Calvin
that
Murphy.
is incorrect. It's also not Calvin Murphy.
Who was drafted a long time ago?
It is someone who's still very impactful in the league.
John Lucas?
No, he was 76. I saw that.
76.
Yeah. If y'all want the hint.
Hint.
Okay, ready for the hint, Don? The hint is
Wait, was it Rudy T?
no.
No.
Now I gotta
Wasn't
give
he
Ben a
drafted by
chance
the,
to
he was drafted
steal.
by the Rockets, right? Yeah, give Ben a chance to steal.
You can pass if you don't gotta.
I'll pass.
Okay. The hint I'm going to give you is culture.
Pat Riley?
Yes.
Oh,
The Rockets drafted Pat Riley?
Yes.
San Diego Rockets. San Diego Rockets. Yeah.
What? I don't remember that. I thought he got drafted by. I don't know. I thought he got drafted by. That's crazy. So now it's Rockets legend Pat Riley. Wow. Never thought I'd see the day.
The one GM I think that Gerald Morey never did a trade with. Pretty amazing.
Wow. Yeah, I guess Rafael Stone can't say that because they did the Oladipo trade.
Yep.
The next question is a numbers question. So
Okay.
whichever one of y'all gets the closest to the correct answer
I
wins.
contractually not answer this. You told me that we know. I'm just kidding. Let's go.
How many games did the Rockets lose in their inaugural season?
Oh God, I'm sure they were terrible. It was 82. So how many did they lose? I'd probably say like 52 games.
I'll say 58.
Ben wins. It was 70.
70?
Yeah.
I always get crushed on these number questions. I had the Yao one last time where I got destroyed on that one. I gave them way too much credit. I'm sorry. I thought 50 would be.
Okay.
I guess 50 is not that much.
This one's kind of a fun one, but I don't really expect y'all to get it. But whatever. If one of y'all knows it or gets close enough to it, I'll give you a point. Why did the San Diego franchise nickname become the Rockets?
God, I know this and I've forgotten.
There's probably some sort of space activity.
Yeah, did they have a
over
launch?
There.
Off
Yeah,
the
there must be
California
probably a launch.
coast? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll just answer this one. Nobody gets a point. It was because of the local of the Atlas missile and booster rocket program.
Ooh.
Okay. So it was like not.
So they had some
space
NASA
rockets?
stuff.
Yeah.
Wait, was it? Wait, I thought a missile was a different type of rocket.
It is a different type of rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we move on. We failed at that.
Okay, who was the name of the first Rockets coach? And this is dating back to the San Diego days. This is pretty much impossible. So I need to find better questions.
Let me think of the coaches that we named off yesterday. Don Chaney.
No.
It was later. What the other coaches you
I'll
have
give you
in
the
that
initials,
question?
so it's
I
a
don't know.
little
Maybe
bit.
too much.
First name starts with a J, second name starts with an M.
With a what?
With an
Justin
M.
Marabueno. Just kidding. I'm shouting him
JM.
out because I know who
Shut
listens
up,
to this.
JP.
I don't know.
No, I'm gonna pass. I'm stumped too.
JM. I don't know.
Dude, you guys.
Julia Morales. Was he coaching that long ago?
Oh no, you didn't just do Julia Morales like that, dude.
First female coach in the NBA all the way back
In
then.
67, 68? It was Jack McMahon. I don't know if y'all know
Jack
that name
McMahon.
from anywhere. Okay, this side has way too hard of questions.
No, keep going like the hard ones.
You like the hard ones? Sure.
Pause.
All right, what's next?
Okay, I'm trying to.
Let's
Okay,
go, let's
so
go.
in '75, the first time the Rockets made the playoffs, they
Who gave you these questions?
they advanced to the second round by beating a team 2-1. Which team was it? It's a current franchise.
Okay, so it has to be in the West because they were in the West and it was the first round.
Remember that
The
West
Lakers,
and the East.
the Lakers probably were in Minnesota at that time. Maybe. No, they couldn't.
I'm
have
gonna
been.
guess Clippers.
No.
Seattle may not have been
Remember
a team.
the East. I'm not sure if that was a thing already, or because
You don't know if West and East is a thing already. That's what you're telling me.
Oh, I don't know if the playoffs were in that format already.
So they haven't just played anyone? Well, that's telling me it probably is an Eastern team. Of course, that could be baiting me as well. I'm going to say it sounds like a really old team.
You have a chance to steal.
Okay, can I steal now?
No, it's done to steal and then it's
okay, sorry.
I'm going to say the Knicks.
Oh, he got it.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
It's the Knicks.
Like,
So
it's got to be an older team. That's crazy.
This is 4-2, Don winning.
Tweet
so
that out.
This is the biggest
This not
lead Don's
happened
ever
last
had.
time. This is not what happened last time. I promise you that.
Okay, so this one is also pretty easy, and I'm going to. Okay.
Probably got the boomer set of questions for this one.
They yeah, this is an old ass website. They advanced to meet the veteran Boston Celtics, which shut the Rockets down in how many games?
6.
Don?
I thought it was 6 too.
Wait, are we talking about 80? Wait, which year? 86?
No, this is in 75.
Oh shoot!
75?
Oh, sorry.
I'll say
okay.
5.
Yeah, it was 5.
Damn it! Sorry, I thought it was 86. Sorry.
Okay, I'll give you just
Ben
1
got
point
hoed
for
out
this
there.
one because
Yeah.
Ben didn't listen to the question
Ben didn't know
it's
what
not
was
really a
going on.
steal.
Gotta check one thing, guys.
All right, go for it. All right, quick. Tell me the next question while he's going.
Because these questions are like they are with.
These are a lot harder than the last group of questions, and there's some funny ones in the last question too. Like, what was the one? The Rockets, who they traded for Moses Malone, something like that. I know.
All right, I'm back. Trivia resumes.
All right. I may or may not have been trying to solicit the next question while you were gone, but they didn't even give it to me.
Okay. No, I got a fun way for this question. It's going to be worth 2 points, and what I have in front of me is a list with the all-time top 10 in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. Right, and we're going to go category by category, and the first person to run out of names loses that category, and that each category is worth a point. Is that
top 10 in franchise history?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait. So are we going back and forth, or we're going like you just go? It's back and forth.
No, I say and Ben says one, and then you say one, and the first one to run out loses. Okay. We're on
points. I don't know. This could be tough.
Points. Just say Ben. You start.
Calvin Murphy.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Rudy Tomjanovich.
James Harden.
Moses Malone.
Wait. Tom.
Has anyone missed yet?
I'm trying to write Rudy T, but
We're talking about any category, right?
No, this is
Points
just
rebound.
points.
Oh, just points? Oh, shit.
This is just points, right?
wait, which
Everyone-
teams Chelsea? Y'all said it too fast. I was trying to type them out.
Oh my gosh.
So, Ben started with Calvin Murphy, then Hakeem Olajuwon, then you said
Harden.
no. Then Ben said
Yeah,
Rudy T,
which I
right?
would not have said if it Rudy.
Rudy.
Into DT, and then you said James Harden. And it's your turn.
It's my turn, right? Eric Gordon.
Ben's turn.
No, then I said
no,
Moses
no,
Malone.
Ben just went. Ben just went. He
Oh,
has
Yeah, I
to
said
Moses
Moses
Malone.
Malone.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Eric Gordon.
Elvin Hayes.
Eric Gordon's incorrect, so Ben gets this point.
Ooh. Wasn't sure Rudy was top. Where's Rudy in the top 10? Because that one's close. I was nervous about it.
Rudy
Gordon letting me down.
Rudy T is actually fourth.
Ooh, okay, that's higher than
So
I thought. I
that's
figured
pretty
it'd be. Yeah, I figured it'd be towards the bottom of the top 10.
Okay, now
Damn,
rebounds.
I wonder what Eric
Go.
Gordon is.
Rebounds and all Don starts because Ben started last time.
Okay. Hakeem. Okay, really easy.
Correct?
This is rebounds.
Yes.
Moses Malone.
Correct?
James Harden.
Correct?
Elvin Hayes.
Correct?
Yao Ming.
Correct? Ben, it's your turn.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking. Wait, it's gonna be close. Rudy Tomjanovich.
Correct.
Oh,
Don.
That's a good one. Clint Capella. He probably wasn't here long enough.
Correct.
Oh,
Oh,
squeak that one out, baby.
oh boy. He probably was not here long enough, but Ralph Sampson.
It's a good answer.
Correct. That's the last one. So we've got 2 spots left. Ralph Sampson was the 10th one. So
there's
Don's
2
your turn.
left.
Yeah.
Clyde Drexler. No, he wasn't here that
That
long.
is incorrect. That was
Oof.
a bad shout as well. He was there for 2 years, wasn't he? Or
I'm
yeah,
guessing. I'm guessing
that was a
Barkley
bad-
was on it. I don't think we
Bark-
said Barkley, did we?
Oh, let me see. Barkley.
I was trying to think. I
No,
was trying to
he
think of
was
someone
not.
from that time. Who
Was
was the
not.
last 2?
I don't know. I would need to get the correct answer to tell.
All right, fair enough.
Oh,
I
no,
get
I
it.
can do it now. It was Otis Thorpe and Robert Reed.
Oh,
Ooh,
and who? Robert Ory?
Robert Reed.
Robert
Reed.
Reed. Okay,
Yeah,
Okay,
I could have got Thorpe. I wouldn't.
yeah.
have gotten
Thorpe's.
Reed.
Yeah, I should remember that.
so this point goes to Ben. It's 5-4.
Do I have
And-
5 or do I have 4?
Yeah,
have 4.
4.
Ah,
Yeah. Next is assists.
Who goes
So
first?
now
Ben, 'cause he
Ben
won.
starts. Top
Right.
10 leaders in assists.
thinking. Calvin Murphy.
Correct.
James Harden.
Correct.
This one's tough because there isn't the Rockets are not historically a big point guard franchise. I'm going to say Kenny Smith.
Correct.
Ooh, okay. I know this guy wasn't here long enough. I'm gonna say Steve Francis wasn't here long enough either. Chris Paul wasn't here long enough. Hakeem.
Correct. I was
Yeah.
surprised that one didn't come out earlier.
Yeah.
It's back to Ben.
Yeah, I'm going to say Steve Francis. I think he was here long enough.
Correct.
Giving the game away here.
There's a pretty obvious one still left.
Is there? I don't think Eric Gordon's had enough of them, man. I don't. Tracy McGrady.
Incorrect. The point goes to Ben. It's 5-5.
Ooh.
I guess McGrady was injured too much. Was Ray Fralston on there? Probably not.
No.
He wasn't here that long either.
The third, ahead of Hakeem, the third one was Alan Lavelle or Level. Then
Oh,
was
yeah.
Mike Newland.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's Sleepy Floyd.
Sleepy
Yep.
Floyd. Oh no, I
Sleepy.
got any of these.
There's Robert Reed, and the obvious one was John Lucas.
Oh, John Lucas. I forgot about him. Yeah, I'm gonna keep that in mind for the next
Now
one.
it's
So it's 5
tied,
up.
and it's steals now. And this one,
Steals?
if y'all don't get it, I mean, not everyone, but close to everyone here.
So
it starts with Don.
Okay.
Hakeem.
Correct.
James Harden.
Correct.
Trevor Ariza.
Correct.
Ooh,
That's a good one.
Big steals guy, Trevor Ariza.
Yeah. Thinking this is tough. I'll go. Did steals? Yeah, I think they had it. I'll go Calvin Murphy.
Correct.
Steve Francis.
Correct.
Damn.
Clyde Drexler.
Incorrect. The first one's incorrect. So
John Lucas. Was he on there?
No, he was not. The names that were left were once again Alan Olivo.
Oh yeah.
Robert Reed.
I was gonna say Robert Reed. I was like, this guy's been over there for everything. I gotta throw him out there at this point.
Catino, Mobley, Sleepy Floyd.
Mobley.
The one that I can't believe y'all forgot.
Fun fact: himself. I once played against Catino Mobley at a Lifetime.
Vernon Maxwell.
Did not go well for me.
Yeah, that's the obvious one. Yeah.
That would have been a good one for.
Okay, so this is a point to Don. It's 6-5. Don's leading, so this one's a closer one. And now it's blocks. So this one's interesting. And it's Ben to start.
Moses Malone.
Correct.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Correct.
Elvin Hayes.
Elvin Hayes is not one of them. Damn.
That's okay. So I got cheated on that because for part of Hayes' career, they didn't count blocks as a stat. God damn it!
Then keep going because I didn't know that. But that's
Do you want to run another one?
He would have been. Yeah. Sorry, I'm putting up that one's dumb because
run another one. Just give another guess. Keep going.
If y'all are okay with it, yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, give another guess.
So we've been to Hakeem Olajuwon, Moses Malone.
Okay.
All right.
Dream, Moses, who else? Ralph Sampson.
Correct.
Otis Thorpe.
Incorrect.
Oh.
And these are some big names. Like
these old guys.
Nobody said
Yao Ming? What? Yeah, duh.
Nobody said Clint Capella. Nobody said
I was going to say
Capella.
Cato. Kelvin Cato's a good name.
James Harden, Robert Reed.
James Harden?
Yeah, he was here
for
a long time.
They told me James Harden didn't play all this defense, and now he's over here top 10 in steals and blocks.
He was here for
Someone lied.
8
I want to know
years.
who was it. Who was it that lied? All right.
And then there's Shane Battier, Robert Reed.
Shane Battier is a great answer.
Yeah,
we got deprived of this. We got deprived of this category, honestly.
Yeah, I looked up, by the way, just to confirm. Yeah, the Elvin Hayes thing, because he played in all 7 seasons with the Rockets. His first 4 were 68 through 72. Like his numbers, I knew they were like comically good. He was averaging like 28 and 16 per game. But yeah, there were no blocks counted until the 1973 to 74 season. So yeah.
Okay, so we're 6-6 after this like mini game. That being said, I have a fun question about Calvin Murphy. I'm pretty sure.
All right,
let's do it.
So what category is it now?
What? What'd you say?
Oh, he's asking what category. Or are we doing questions now?
Oh, it's questions now.
Oh, okay.
Categories.
Okay, what season did Hakeem Olajuwon become the NBA's all-time career leader in blocked shots?
What season? It's gotta be a late season. Actually, well, it doesn't have to be that late.
It doesn't have to be that late because again, they didn't count the blocks for a while.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 94.
93, 94, or 94, 95?
Exactly.
90. Is it that? Am I that close? I'll say 93, 94.
Ben? It's wrong, Ben.
Okay. I'll go. Jesus, this is so tough. I'll go 95, 96.
Correct, on the
Oh.
money. All right, so Ben's 7-6. Oh no, this is a steal. So Ben's 8-6.
Not me getting crushed in trivia yet again. Here we go. What is this? All right, let's get it.
Okay, this is a two-part question. So I guess I'll make this two different. I'll make this two different questions, but I'll ask them both at the same time, and y'all will give me two numbers, and whichever one's closest to both of them gets 1 point for each. So, how many consecutive games did the Rockets win to start out the 93-94 season? And then how many did they win for the entire regular season campaign? So give me one number for each.
15 and 58.
Which season?
It doesn't matter because Ben nailed it the first time.
Did he? Oh,
Sorry.
my God. I
Sorry.
wouldn't have got it. Nah, that's fine. I wouldn't have got it right
That's crazy. How do you know that so well? That's really impressive.
That was in my that's in my wheelhouse. That's when I started watching. San Diego and like mid '80s and before my time. But yeah, if we're starting like mid '90s, then yeah.
All right,
Okay.
run one.
Well, this one was before. I mean, it's kind of pointless to ask this one because y'all didn't know his name before, but I'll ask it anyway since okay.
Robert
I'll ask
Reed.
it-
Final answer.
No. Who was the reserve point guard who called that all-important timeout in the last second of the Rockets' series-winning victory over the LA Lakers in the '86 Western Conference Finals? Is this familiar to anyone? I don't know.
No, I know the play. I'm blanking.
I want to say that Lavelle guy. I mean, it's been him for all these other questions. I don't even know if he was a point guard.
Is there your final answer?
I have no answer to this, bro. I'm going to say him. Actually, no, when was... Yeah, I'm going to say him.
Okay, you won. It was him.
Oh,
So it's 9-7. Don's closing the gap, but Ben's on match point, so
I got
All right.
it. That was literally the highest levels of luck. I only said it because you did not say
Yeah.
his name.
okay.
all right.
What was Tracy McGrady's season high in points for the Houston Rockets during the 2005-2006 season? And who gets the closest gets the point.
Season high?
Yes, in 05-06.
No, 506. That has to be not long after he came from the Magic.
Wait, season high in like any game we're talking about?
Yes, in
Yeah.
a single
Okay,
game.
gotcha. Yeah, not an average. Okay.
I'm going to say 47. It's a big score.
Ben?
I'm gonna say 50.
Okay, Don wins again. He
Oh.
edges ever closer. The season high was 43.
Oh damn it! I was worried about that Van Gundy offenses.
Yeah,
it
that's
was so
a good
slow.
point.
There just weren't many points.
Okay.
We got James Harden on the brain. It's like, oh, dude puts up 50 points like it's nothing.
Yeah.
I had the same thing yesterday or the other day. We answered how many threes did Yao hit in the season. I was like, probably like, not a lot, like 30. And it was 0.
Oh my god.
It's like, that's like 3 games for Harden, like 30,
Okay.
whatever. Like,
I'll ask this one. What Houston Rocket player had their contract extended through the 2010-2011 season in 2005? So they signed an extension in 2005
for 5
that
years.
went all the way to
You can't even do that now. 2005. It has to be Yao. Who
That
else
is
are they giving
correct. It's 9-9.
Like, who else are they giving that type of contract
Yeah.
to?
Couldn't they give it to T-Mac?
T-Mac was injured a lot. I don't think they give him that type of
Wasn't-
contract.
I
Well,
think
and he
Yao
got a
was
new deal as part of his extension in 04.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I need the last question. This is match point.
For all the marbles.
Because you got to win by 2.
Whoever wins will be
Oh,
winning.
you got to
Or
win by
we-
2? Oh, okay.
Or are we making this the deciding one? How do you
I
want to do
think-
this?
Look, we gotta do a secret meeting after this. So let's do this. Will be the final
All right,
question.
we'll do it.
For all, the
For all
winner
the
go
marbles.
home.
For all the marbles, let me try and find the best question that I can.
This is pressure for me because last time I got cooked. embarrassed my family name in the last trivia we did. Have me people saying in my replies that they should revoke my Rockets fan card for not knowing that Rudy T had to resign from
Okay.
bladder cancer. I was like, I never heard this. All right,
Okay,
let's get it.
You know what? I'm gonna make this question up myself because I don't want this. Because all the questions that I have left are from like way back in the 70s. So
This whole thing's been way back from the 70s. I don't know why. That'll be a problem now. Whatever. Do what you must.
So my question will be, I guess just to make sure that this is fair, it's going to be a 3-1. So I'm going to ask 3 things, and whichever one of y'all gets the most right gets the point and wins the game. So it's basically the same as winning by 2, but it's
Okay.
like all in one go.
Sure.
The question is, I'm asking about the 2022-2023 Houston Rockets season. I am asking who was the coach, who was the leader in
the 2022-2023 season?
Yeah, I'm asking who was the coach, who was the leader in win shares, and I am asking how many games did they win?
For next season?
Am I the only one that's confused right now?
No,
Yeah.
sorry, the 2002 to 2003 season.
Oh, okay.
It's like, yo, Paulo
I
came
heard
back in the
22.
future, dog. Yeah, I heard 22 and I asked 22. I was
Sorry.
like,
It might be correct.
I was like, did the coach get fired? Like, is it not going to be Silas? I was very confused.
I was leaking all
He's from the
leaking all the
future.
inside info.
He's from the future.
Breaking
he's like a
news:
time
Rockets
traveler.
fire Steven Silas. Like, just kidding. Don't clip that. All right. So, okay. To 2002, 2003.
So I want the top win shares, the coach, and the total wins.
The coach in 2002.
So the coach was Rudy Tomjanovich.
Okay. Well, it was L for
1
me.
point for Ben.
I'm gonna say the top win shares was Steve Francis.
1 point for Don, and now it's the
Yeah,
total
damn it, I
wins.
should have said.
Now, was it the total wins?
Yes.
42 wins.
Ben,
Oh, can I change? I want to do 43. 43 is a better number.
you can
I
change it.
believe. I'm trying to think. 45.
It was as close as it could possibly have been. The correct answer is 43. So Ben was 2 away and Don was 1 away.
Oh,
I
man.
tried to change it to 43 too.
But you won anyways. So you won on a nail biter like last question
All right.
possible.
I would like to thank all of my friends. I would like to thank my dog, Melvin, Jackson, for believing in me and bringing me into podcasting.
And in fairness,
Houston,
yeah,
Brad.
yeah. And in fairness, technically Don should have won earlier because I was wrong about the Elvin Hayes. It's just it was a little unfair because they didn't count the blocks, but technically Don should have won on that. So
I don't even know what to do with myself right now. I'm gonna have to have a nice, Carbot Clutch City Lager and wind down my night. There you go. All right, so. Well, Ben, thank you for joining us. Thank you for entertaining our Rockets trivia. If we do this again, hopefully we'll have the questions more lined out next time. But we kind of ran these on the fly, so
I'm gonna need to start coming up with them myself because we ran out of online quizzes.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. A Rockets podcast should be able to do most of the Rockets online trivia. But hey,
yeah. By the way, one insane factoid, and I should have known it was Francis, but I remember Yao was crazy good as a rookie. So I went back and looked it up right now about the 2002-2003 team. So Steve Francis played nearly 1,000 more total minutes than Yao Ming. But the win shares, Francis had 11.1, Yao had 8.7. That is pretty damn close for a 1,000-minute gap in total minutes. So yeah, that's why I did a double take. And yeah, Francis is the right call because he just played more minutes and more games.
Yeah.
But yeah, Yao was pretty damn good. Such a freaking shame he couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah, same thing with a number of guys in Rockets franchise history. T-Mac, Chris Paul. We won't go on, but that's gonna do it for us today. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Don Knock. You can follow the pod at Clutch City CR. If you want the links for the YouTube, Apple, Spotify, go to the description there and click on the link tree. You'll find them. As always, leave a YouTube comment. If you're watching on YouTube, we want to thank you again. If you commented last time, y'all did a great job. Paulo, tell them where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Paulo Alves NBA. That's PAULOALVES NBA. Everything I do from podcasts like this one to the live shows on Twitter Spaces will find itself link on there.
And Ben, tell them they can find all of your great work.
Yep, Ben DuBose on Twitter, the Rockets Wire on Twitter, rocketswire.usatoday.com, and of course at Rockets Wire you can also find our podcast, The Logger Line.
There you go. And
Sports790.com as well, I should say.
There you go. And Ben, I believe when the Rockets finally announced, you are going to be going to the Rockets watch party for the draft. Is that correct?
To be determined.
Okay,
Possibly. Still might try to do both because I'm a long time, hashtag Beam a draft party with David Weiner. So might try to do both. We'll see. Waiting for the official plans to get announced, but yeah, I'll be out and about for sure. TBD.
Potentially see Ben at the draft party. But
yep.
Until next time, everyone, be safe and go Rockets.